and we are here now for a party.
I mean, I'm searching for the party poppers. What it says on that Europa League trophy is 24-25 winners, Tottenham. It don't say in brackets, but the game lacked quality. I never felt concerned that Manchester United were going to get back into it.
I think Amorim had a disaster class. I think he got absolutely little boyed. He got patted on the head.
Got nothing to look forward to. There is nothing that you can take from this.
He is going nowhere, by the way, and I'm pleased he's going nowhere.
Yeah. You know what? It will go down as the coldest quote. He always wins in his second season.
I think if it's Ten Hag's United against you lot last night, I think we win it.
Unbelievable. Back post Brennan turn into front post Brennan.
Right now, as of right now, the day after the Europa League Final, Amorim is not it. I've lost my head again.
We've gone down this Amorim road now. We have to keep going.
This isn't Man United. It's kind of, 11 red shirts, if you want to call it that.
Go on, natural.
Get him out.
You can't mean that.
Get him out.
You can't. Hello there and welcome to a very, very special edition of Inside Devils and Inside Spurs. I'm your host, Ryan Scott Douglas, filling in for Flex, and of course, alongside me is the wonderful Angelina Kelly. But this is going to be the most painful 45 minutes. Maybe not as painful as the 90 minutes yesterday, I'm not going to lie to you, but the most painful 45 minutes coming up right now. So, that's the United side. And, of course, I'm joined by Inside Spurs.
You are indeed. I'm Ricky Sachs, representing Inside Spurs here, alongside ex-pro, huge Spurs fan, Darren Ambrose, and we are here now for a party. 17-year party in waiting.
I'm searching for the party poppers. It's going to be an unbelievable 45 minutes for us. Look, what a game.
Can you believe it? Can you believe?
No, I can't. You know what? I was more nervous going into this game. I don't know what the guys think. I was more nervous because it was Manchester United.
Yeah.
If it was Bilbao or someone like that, or Bodo Glimt in the final, I wouldn't have been as concerned about losing. But knowing we was coming here today as well, I was extremely nervous. But we see a different style of play, and we got the job done.
Yeah, I know. Do you know what? It was, that All English final was an extra element, wasn't it? You don't want to lose to the other English side. But I mean, I can't believe what I watched. Let's put our neutral hats on for a second. The game itself was dreadful. It was absolutely dreadful.
It wasn't a classic.
No, it wasn't. I mean, you guys aren't going to care. But the game itself was terrible.
What it says on that Europa League trophy is 24-25 winners, Tottenham. It don't say in brackets, but the game lacked quality. It's irrelevant to us how it happened. The goal kind of summed up the game as well. I don't know if it was Brennan Johnson's or not. If it's me, I'm claiming that as well. I'm claiming that.
It wasn't.
And I know Luke Shaw's not going to want to claim that either. So
he should.
It just summed up the game, didn't it, in itself? It did lack quality. But like I said, I don't know what you think, Rick. I see a different side to Ange. In the semi-final, in the final, they got a goal up, and they just soaked up the pressure. I thought the defending, maybe because the creativity of Spurs, Kulusevski, Maddison, Bergville weren't involved. We had to play that style in terms of defending the lead, and that there was the chance that fell to who we would have wanted it to fall to in Højlund, and it was excellent defending from Van der Ven on the line. But I just see a different side of Spurs, and I never felt concerned that Manchester United were going to get back into it.
If I can add on that point, I think it's interesting. I think we only attempted 3 shots during the game, the lowest of all of our Europa League games this season. I think to touch upon that point you said there about the way Spurs set up, much more of a pragmatic-based style of play, conceding possession to United, and almost in such a structured way, Tottenham in real confidence about the defence they had to know we're going to be resilient. We're not going to be allowed to be broken down. And I thought, again, credit to Ange Postecoglou, because as we've said throughout this season, on I think Inside Spurs of Abbey as well on here, there has been massive concerns with relation to the way Spurs have approached games. But as we've said, in this latter stage of the European games competition-wise, Ange tactically has had it so spot on. And I think that's why there's such a debate, which I know we'll come on to with regards to his future and what it does mean. And I suppose for you guys as well, with regards to Ruben Amorim.
It's so difficult. How are you feeling, Ange? You've been quiet, and I don't blame you. I mean, I left my head back in Birmingham. I completely lost it, honestly. I've had to compose myself today. But how are you feeling?
It's a tough one. I mean, I was up in Manchester at Hotel Football with Man United fans, and it's just really has been the worst season. I was not alive for the relegation season, but it's just the worst season for Man United. I am just devastated, I think. You've got nothing to look forward to. There is nothing that you can take from this. You just feel numb. And I think for me, looking at the game as a whole, everyone was dubbing this the worst European final you could imagine because it was two, teams that have been very poor in their league. I was really hoping from both sides that they'd be able to maybe change the narrative a bit and really put on a show. And I think just as a viewer of the game, that was quite disappointing that we didn't really see that. I mean, we talk about, Spurs having, low possession, low amount of shots, etc., etc. That's just frustrating for United because you can argue you were maybe there for the taking a bit more. But I think just overall, the fact that it was so lacklustre, there was nothing in it. There weren't even any enjoyable moments as a United fan in it. I think that's what is just really frustrating. And I think had Spurs have not won the trophy, this would have gone down as the worst Spurs team in 120 years. And the fact that United are walking away from this season having been beaten 4 times by, trophy aside, the worst Spurs team in 120 years, I think that just, that sums it all up for me.
Oh man, I couldn't agree more. And you've summarised it so good. I feel the same way. Let's not dampen it too much. Let's not dump them in.
Yeah, we've got to allow you guys to enjoy this.
So how are you guys feeling then?
I've got to say to you, when you've waited 17 years for a trophy, 41 years for a European trophy, and you have a game where, let's be honest about it, it was a cagey affair to some degree. But I do feel there's an element of profession to the way Tottenham really approached the game. Credit to Ange, as I've said in my intro, in relation to how he really managed the game. And you know what? It will go down as the coldest quote of the 24-25 season. He always wins in his second season. And how we did it.
Honestly, that quote there, look, I think I'm one of the only ones, and you'll know, I was here with you a couple of weeks ago. I'm one of the only ones that have been Ange in from day dot, to be honest.
Fair play, man.
I've been close. I tell you, I've been close. I'm almost off that Ange in train, but I've stuck with him because in terms of the European side of things, I see something. I see a different style of play. I see a different way that Ange was approaching the game. So I thought there is something special that could happen. And look, arguably, the teams that were involved, if we got the right run of games, which we did, we could have met you lot into the final. And that was the most nervous I felt going into a game this season. Look, what I loved about Ange, listening to him at the end, and he's not done this before. He admitted that the league campaign's been poor. He hasn't done this. Normally he's bullish. He comes out, he protects the players. He kind of takes the pressure off them. And he started off as this media darling. Then he's turned into this character, this villain in terms of going ahead with the media and going to war with the media. But that's to take the pressure off the players. And I've said it before. If I'm a player looking at that, I love it. And you could tell at the end when they got it over the line, the players love him. There was an image, I don't know if you've seen the little video of him standing on the edge when they was about to do the parade, and the players have dragged him in. He is going nowhere, by the way, and I'm pleased he's going nowhere. He deserves respect.
This is such a fascinating situation with regards to Ange because, look, Tottenham are a football club where, I'm sure you agree, Dale, we would think we know Tottenham's next move, but you just don't because Tottenham have the ability, as we've seen, to sack a manager 5 days before a cup final. Yeah. And you're in this situation now with regards to Ange Postecoglou where, as you've rightly highlighted there, he says in his post-match press conference that the league form has been poor. Yep. Poor where I think many fans were open to a change of manager. But you're now in this situation where you've got a man that has delivered not only the first trophy in 17 years, but the first European trophy in 41 years. There'll be a lot of fans that think, how on that basis can you sack him? Where I think at the moment there is no real obvious managerial candidate out there to come in and replace him.
Yeah, it's such an unprecedented season for Spurs, and people could look at reasons and excuses. They're genuine. Look, you lost those games, Ipswich, Palace, they spring to mind when you had your full squad. And then you go on this barren spell, losing loads of games, takes you right to the bottom of the league because you had an injury crisis. And people could say that we didn't have this injury crisis, but we did. When you're losing, particularly your 2 best centre-halves, you're going to struggle. We had like 11, 12 players out at one time. And then you come back, and he made it clear last night that his sole focus, once his squad was fit, was the Europa League. Yeah. So people don't like to hear that. They wouldn't have liked to hear that because people pay their money to go to Premier League games and they want to be entertained. They want to see that you're trying to win. But the sole focus was winning this trophy. wouldn't be where we are now if we didn't have those injuries.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be where we are now in terms of league position if we weren't going so far in the Europa League, because we'd have focused on the league campaign. I think he deserves respect. I think he's done exactly what he said he was going to do. You start next season, 5-10 games, you're losing them all. Yeah, of course, there's going to be questions asked. But there's the example of the Erik ten Hag to Manchester United.
Well, I was going to say, a cautionary tale from this side of the table. We were in the exact same scenario in the FA Cup. And really, we were contemplating whether we were just kicking the can down the road, and that ended up being the case. But
I guess with Ollie as well, to a degree.
Yeah. But you look back at it, and obviously we'll touch on Amorim. Should we even got rid of Ten Hag?
You've got to know when to cut the cord, I think.
Yeah.
And it's tough to decide when you've got a trophy, and a trophy that means so much to you guys, having had to wait so long. He's completed the assignment technically.
Yeah.
He's done what is needed, and I think now that you've got that trophy, it's almost like eases maybe a little bit of pressure in some ways, because it's been done now. You've secured it. What do you really want your next season to look like is the question.
Do you back him in the summer? There's so many
That's
elements.
my biggest concern. I don't know what you think, Rick. That Daniel Levy, the powers that be, Enoch, Joe Lewis, whoever, will look at this and go, we've got a trophy now with this squad. They're good enough to win a trophy. We won't back him. We'll keep with this. He has to be backed. If you're keeping him, has to be backed. Has to bring players in that can play his system, whoever that may be, because he will stick to his guns to a certain extent. You will see that system again in terms of the free-flowing attacking Ange ball. But you need the players. He needs to be backed. And I'm concerned that getting that trophy, in terms a negative look towards it, is the powers that be say, well, we've got a good squad to win a trophy.
We can't forget, obviously, for Tottenham, winning the trophy does mean they're going to be playing in the Champions League and the Super Cup final. This is a lot to take in. I've got to be honest here. A lot has happened in this last 24 hours where even I'm questioning what's going on, because I've not slept.
Parallel universe.
I've not slept yet. So the thing is, I'm going to wake up. This is a reality. I'm not even sure. I know if Son's kind of holding a trophy as an AI model. I don't know. But you know what? I just think it's absolutely fascinating that, you know, you mentioned there, Dale, in relation to what it means for Tottenham in the summer. And I think what was quite interesting is Ange was hinting in the post-match press of the fact that, you know, he feels, I think he would need more experienced players. And I think he's already kind of hinting there, really, that he feels he's at the start of this journey still. You know, he feels it's a 5-6 year project, which he told TNT Sports. I mean, I know for you guys, I don't know if you feel, how you feel about the fact that, you know, the fact that Amorim's been beaten by Postecoglou in this final, given all the hurrah over Postecoglou's future, and the fact you've got Amorim coming out in the post-match presser talking about compensation and not being required. I mean, what do you make of the whole
That was bizarre,
situation around Amorim and how he handled the post-match element to it?
It is bizarre. It is bizarre. And look, we've complimented him and you know, commended him for being refreshingly honest at points, but sometimes it does go a bit too far. One thing I'll say, just talking about, you've mentioned there, the final and the fact that we lost to Ange in the final. So the interesting thing is, you know, Ange, you mentioned it there, he pivoted his style. Yeah. He locked in, dug his heels in, and just went for that one game in isolation. It looked like that they wanted it more. So that was interesting, whereas Amorim sticks to his style and we don't, you know, create anything of danger. What I'll say is, I think if it's Ten Hag's United against you lot last night, I think we win it. I think we get over the line. Yeah, I think he wins that trophy because, you know, he won it 2 seasons prior. So where does that leave us with Amorim? Again, we'll go into it in more depth. But I think it's damning, Ange.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at it. I feel like for a lot of Man United fans that I was talking to, as much as Sir Jim Ratcliffe has done these interviews saying that he backs him and that there's reports that the board back him, etc., etc., fans are worried that he may walk. Fans are worried that Sir Jim will pull the plug because, as we know, I've said it all season, this is a ruthless businessman that has been ruthless in some pretty horrific situations, and they are an extremely unpredictable board, and you do not know what decision they will make. All I know is if they do stick with him, the beginning of next season, the amount of pressure that will mount and mount and mount, that is what's scary. I mean, like you say, we'll get into it in more depth. I still do back the manager. I know that, we've been speaking to, Flex and Crookie, and I feel bad for the guys out there because I think it heightens everything even more. I do still back him. I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later, but I understand people's concerns, and especially like you say, the comment of saying that he would leave. I mean, you can imagine Sir Jim's thinking, right, okay, no compensation, let's go, let's do it. It's like, giving him a reason because we all know he loves to cut a bit of money and get a bit of a discount and stuff. So
do you, I have to ask you guys, do you know even the vibe around the kind of week building up to the final was a interesting one because Ange's presser, to be fair, was quite a spiky element to it.
Yeah.
And there was a much more, chilled vibe coming from the United camp. I mean, there was that feeling that building up to the final, United needed to win it purely just to get back in the Champions League, where I think, if you agree, Dale, I think us as Tottenham fans, if you said to Spurs fans, we're going to win the trophy and you don't get Champions League football, I think we probably would have taken it. We just need to get this trophy monkey off our back,
It means different things, doesn't it? Yeah. And I think one thing I will say is that this Europa League, the new structure of European football, I think you do have to question what it does to the Europa League, because if we're being completely honest, if the Champions League teams would have dropped down, I don't think either of us would have been in the final. So, I mean, for you guys, it's great. I guess for the neutrals looking at it, they might think that it has lessened the Europa League. I'm not too sure. But I think the build-up to it was very interesting, like you say. And I just, it's a tough one. I feel like it did mean more to you guys because it's the trophy. And that does mean so much. I think for Man United, because there is so much going on behind closed doors, and it is this, I think Sir Jim coming out and saying, again, allegedly, because he's provided no receipts of this, and I personally am unsure as to how true this is, that the club was, going to go completely bust by Christmas. But when you've got those little nuggets of things and these rumours and these redundancies, etc., you're thinking, oh my God, financially, what is going to happen? So I do get it, and I would agree that it means more for you guys because it is about the trophy. I think it's more moving forward for United and what the future looks like as to why it's got people so nervous.
I think in the build-up, just touch on that, it's like it wouldn't have been a success for Manchester United to win. That's what it came across like. The way Ruben Amorim was talking in his interviews,
it's still not good enough.
She said that the Europa League isn't really
have changed the season. No. The season, whereas Spurs, it was sole focus to win this trophy.
And maybe psychologically, is that the wrong approach? Because even if it's not good,
there would have been no parade.
The barbecue,
won it.
The barbecue story coming out
on a building site of Carrington, by the way.
Yeah.
Just feel in the previous game, I think Spurs made 10 changes. Manchester United, I think, only made 1 or 2 changes. Yeah. They were focusing on getting higher up the league when everything should have been geared towards winning this trophy. It's a huge trophy.
Absolutely.
And I understand the fact that the Champions League sides, if they dropped out, we probably wouldn't have won this. But I've always felt that shouldn't be the case anyway. If you're losing one tournament, you shouldn't go, well, we've lost in that tournament, now I've got another opportunity in another big tournament. This is the second biggest European tournament there is. I think it just seemed too chilled, and even when Ruben Amorim was talking about he's under no pressure, or maybe, and Bruno said, well, who said that? What's my job? It didn't seem that Manchester United were taking it seriously.
I think psychologically you've got to think of, and I don't know, maybe you could shed light on that as a player. If you're in a final, whether it's big or small, if your manager's saying this still isn't good enough for Manchester United, this doesn't really mean anything, you'd be sat there thinking, right, well, what's the, it doesn't really give you an incentive, and it doesn't really create that kind of mentality that you need going into a final, maybe.
I look at it as a player's point of view, and I think surely he's not saying that in private to the players. Surely that's just a public
persona. If you're reading that, you must think,
or listening to it.
Yeah.
When you're in the changing rooms or the dressing room or the training ground, you'll have the TV on. You'd have seen quotes. You'd have seen him in his presser, and it wouldn't have come across. It would be like, well, if he's not taking it too seriously, why should we? Are we building up right? Are we eating the right things? Are we sleeping? It's just a tournament that they don't really want to win.
And I think that's interesting because you look at the FA Cup final last year, and there was talk about, Erik ten Hag doing this big motivational thing, these videos and stuff like that. And I think Amorim had kind of said like, oh, I'm not really into stuff like that. You've just got to prep it like it's a normal game. So you do question, like you say, if this had been a ten Hag team mentality, it does come into play, I think.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be an interesting next, I think, for Tottenham, 48, 72 hours of Ange Postecoglou and how that pans out.
Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
And we shall see. One person that was having the time of their life out in Bilbao was the wonderful Abby Summers, of course, host of Inside Spurs, where things got pretty chaotic, it's fair to say, where she was in Bilbao. Let's check out where Abby was at the time and how things did go down in Bilbao.
Abby Summers, of course, talkSPORT Goals legend, is live in Bilbao. Abby, please tell me you can hear me, Abby. Abby Summers, can you hear me? Do you know what? I don't think you can hear me, but we can see you, and that's good enough for me. Look at that, Abby Summers there, enjoying herself inside the stadium.
Hello, you lovely lot on Inside Spurs, Inside Devils, little collab. I'm very, very happy. I've just got to the airport in Greece, don't know what we're calling it. We just did a lovely long drive back from Bilbao, which actually went very quickly because when you are champions of Europe, time really, really flies. So emotional. Still can't believe that actually happened last night. We've finally broken the curse. Who cares about us finishing 17th, by the way? I mean, that's just not even important. What have we been worrying about? What have we been worrying about all season long? We were always going to do this. It was the plan all along, wasn't it, guys? He told us, always wins things in his second season, and he's delivered. I'm sure people are going to ask me if I've changed my opinion on the whole Ange in, Ange out, Ange out debate. I've definitely softened. That's the emotion in me. I still don't think he is the right man over a 38-game season, but if the board decides to keep him, then I'm on board and I will support all the way. Anyway, I'll see you guys next week. I'm very, very excited, very, very happy. I can't even get my words out today, to be honest with you. I'm just so happy. On cloud nine, been singing Spurs songs the entire day. And yeah, look forward to doing Inside Spurs with you lot next week. Up the Spurs.
Well, look, Abby having the absolute time of her life there out in Bilbao, and who can blame her? We waited 17 years for this now, right? We waited 17 years.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
When you win those tournaments, and look, they're going to get the parade as well. Oh. I was 6 years old when we won the FA Cup, and I vaguely remember it. And then 07, 08, I was a player, so you don't take that too seriously when you're a player for other teams. You let that get on with it, but that's what it means to those supporters. It's a new generation of supporters that's never seen that.
Honestly, there's a lot of Spurs fans that are not going to know themselves in these next few days. You know
how to behave.
We've won a trophy.
Barely win a game. Never won a trophy.
We've had a parade. We've beaten United 4 times in a season. I know these things don't really match up with what's going on in football, but there you go, you have it all there. I think what was interesting going into the game, there was a lot of talk with regards to how Spurs were going to line up. I think there was and in the build-up to the week itself whether Lucas Bergvall might be a potential late candidate to feature. He wasn't. He went out and travelled with the team, which to be fair, I thought that was a really nice touch from Ange. The fact you had a lot of the travelling players actually out there that couldn't feature, but were still part of the group. What did you make of the way Spurs lined up for the game itself?
It was one of those, wasn't it? Because we had the injuries, and before the game, I'm thinking, where's the creativity? Where Kulusevski's missing, Maddison's missing, Bergvall's missing. All had their full kits there, by the way, for some reason. They must have been confident, but they all had their kits there. But where's the creativity coming from? I was speaking to me boys at home, and I just felt Porro would be the one creative spark for us, and because you had Sarr, Bissouma, really good in that. I just felt this defensive style of play that we were going to play, and hoping that we would get the goal. And like I said, the goal summed up the game, really. And once you got the goal, I just could not see Manchester United breaking Spurs down unless Fernandes turned up, which I felt was a bit disappointing yesterday. I think he obviously felt, I don't know what you guys felt, all the pressure on his shoulders, and it showed. And it's never normally showed with him. He's that big game player. He turns up, gets the job done. But you could see he was the only one that could have done anything, and he didn't on the night.
I've got to say, before we bring in the guys, I thought what was fascinating is from a Tottenham perspective is that when Mickey van der Ven does that acrobatic clearance.
Mickey Van Dam, wasn't it?
You know what, can I say, when stuff happens like that at the Tottenham in a cup final, you know something is happening. Because stuff doesn't happen like that to Tottenham in a cup final.
Ibrahimovic on
Yeah, it was just not that
I think that was the turning point for me where I thought, we ain't getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
And you always like to try and even in hotel football, like you felt the atmosphere and there was like, you know, the 1 or 2 chances that we did have. Also, Højlund not being able to head a ball. That was
such a bad
hysterical. But when you saw that moment, I was like, this ain't happening.
I think there was a block immediately after. It might have been Romero as well. But
there was.
Those 2 centre-halves won us that game.
Basuma,
simple as that.
This was almost like the Brighton Basuma, the man that we signed at the time. He was absolutely formidable. I mean, to be fair with Tottenham, I said, I think in the build-up to the game that we were going to need, in my opinion, 9 or 10 out of 10 performances across the pitch, and you're not going to a serious off day. I think you're not in a serious off day. I mean, it's...
do you know what? I'll touch back on the Bruno point you mentioned there. He didn't have the best of games last night, of course. You can't always do it. I think he's got 36 goals and assists this season, which is unbelievable in this squad when you think it was 16. I actually think it was a team sheet problem. I think Amorim picked the wrong squad and played Fernandes in the wrong position. So you've got Bruno Fernandes in the centre of midfield alongside Casemiro now, almost playing as this deep line playmaker with, and I'm sorry to say it, because look, he's had a few good games, but Mason Mount in the cam may as well not have been on that pitch. It just makes absolutely no sense to me to play Mount in a position that Bruno is an absolute creative machine in. It just made no sense. Yeah. So I think Bruno's playing in this deep line playmaker role, which look, he has transitioned into during a game at points, but there is absolutely no need to start him in the centre of the pot when he is your creative hub. He should be in one of those 10s behind Højlund, you know, alongside, for me, Garnacho, and then you've got Ugarte and Casemiro, as it has been. So I think Bruno, that nervousness was created from, he's got Mount and Højlund in front of him, he's not firing. That's where that nervousness comes from.
Do you think the worst thing that could have happened to you guys was Mount's performance in the semi-final, scoring the 2 goals?
I mean, Amorim's rewarded him. Amorim's rewarded. I will say about Mason Mount, this is someone who has played in a Champions League final. Do you know what I mean? This isn't just some randomer that they've dragged in off the street. I do understand what Ryan's saying, but I do feel like I wasn't that mad at the team selection. It was how late the subs were. Yeah, that was more my problem with it, because normally I always used to keep track of how long it took for subs to be made. Ten Hag used to wind me up with it. Ollie used to wind me up with it. He's normally, I feel like I'm satisfied at about 65 minutes because I'm seeing subs being made. And the way it was dragging on, people were yelling out for subs to be made. So I do get it, you know, he's rewarded Mount, and maybe that wasn't 100% the right decision. But I think, you know, with Højlund, there's a lot of discussion as what he should have done. I don't think he could have, you know, slapped Xerxes straight in there. Maybe he could have mixed it up a little bit, I think. But I also with Ugarte, as much as I was expecting an Ugarte-Casemiro midfield, we have seen Ugarte give the ball away quite a bit, but I think it's quite telling that this is a player that has played for Ruben Amorim and he's not backed him in this final. I thought that was, you know, an interesting part of it. But, you know, maybe he should have experimented a little bit more. The Garnacho situation, we'll come on to it. I know he's your guy, but I'm not particularly happy. I also, you know, a lot of criticism about Luke Shaw, but again, this is someone that has played in finals. As much as he has been injured, this is someone who's experienced. Who else are you going to play in that position? You've got what? You've got Victor Lindelof, Aiden Heavens, you know, he's coming back from injury, he's quite young and experienced. Had he have played Mazraoui in the back 3, then that would have meant, you know, what do you do with Ahmad, who's a creative player? Yeah, maybe at the wing back he said that he doesn't mind, but there was a lot of different pieces to the starting 11. So I do get your frustration. It was more for me that the changes weren't made quick enough.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think it's both. I think you made a good point with this. So I think Amorim had a disaster class. I think he got absolutely little boyed yesterday by Ange. He got patted on the head. You know, and that's
not been said this season.
No, exactly.
Hasn't been.
And that is, you know, that's where I am with that performance in isolation from Amorim yesterday. He got the squad wrong. I'm sorry. Luke Shaw looked unfit. He didn't look fit.
He was sweating like 20 minutes in, like he'd been playing 80 minutes.
He's thrown him under the bus there, though. He's thrown. We've talked.
Who else would have been in your back 3? What would you have done with your defence then?
A fit Lindelof over an unfit Shaw. I think that's an absolute no-brainer. You play Ahmad in. I've been told, right? Ahmad's scored hat-tricks in the right wing-back position.
Yeah.
I've been told over and over and over again, right, that the most pivotal part of this Amorim system is the wing-backs. It's absolutely essential. Well, then play Amad there and put Garnacho in the 10 that he's played every single game. It's Bruno Garner, every single European game. That's what you see. And as soon as Garnacho comes on, all 22 men on the field, obviously the goalkeepers are not going to be, but Garnacho is the biggest threat on the field, and he's not started. So the personnel, he's like you say, he's not pulled the trigger on the subs. If Xerxes can play 20 minutes, look, he can play half an hour. It's quite clear that Højlund was not doing the business up top. So for me, in terms of selection, and that's what we're circling all the way back to the Bruno, I think there's a nervousness from Bruno because he's not in the right position, and the personnel around him, in my opinion, just
you also
wrong.
can't be mad because the guy has won us so much this season. There's only so much you can do. You do look at it and think, were we naive going into this game? You've had the Lyon games, you've had the Bilbao games, and I think, talking to fans, it was almost, a lot of people say, the luck's almost ran out. We've been relying on people like Bruno to just have a magic moment, or someone like Harry Maguire, and it was almost like the luck had run out.
Yeah, I know.
This is why I think, coming over you, Dad, I think this is why a lot of Spurs fans were a lot more confident going into this final than other finals. Again, stat out there, we hadn't scored in 4 finals before this one. 44 shots later, Brennan Johnson was the man to put us ahead. I've just got to say on Brennan Johnson, this is a guy that had to deactivate his Instagram account at the earlier part of the season due to the abuse that he was getting. I think it's lovely when you look at the kind of full circle moment that he is the man, by hook or by crook, by toenail, by whatever you want to call it, that has played a part in that winning goal that gets Spurs the trophy. And for such a young guy that comes from a footballing family, what must that feeling be like for him, having gone through what he's gone through this season? 18th goal of the season, top goal scorer for the club. Been an unbelievable campaign, hasn't it, for him?
Unbelievable. Back post Brennan turned into front post Brennan, which is incredible.
He knows himself.
And you know what? I'm delighted for him. I played with his dad at Ipswich, David, and I'm delighted for the family, as you said. It's a footballing family, and you know what I love about him? For me, I think the majority, if not all, footballers should deactivate their social medias. I think it's poison the majority of the time. There's some positivity around it, but if you're not mentally strong enough, and I've been there as a player, if you're not mentally strong enough, you should just deactivate it. And it's exactly what it's done. And what I love about him is now he hasn't got that. He's got no outside influence, and he just plays his game. And yes, he's been criticised for some performances. He's got pace to burn. Sometimes he doesn't use that enough, that pace, but he arrives at the right place at the right time all the time. I watched him at Portman Road against Ipswich, and he finds himself in the box free, no one around him. And people say it's bad marking. It's not. It's good forward play. You know where to go. You know where to stand. And this time he made the correct run. He sees Sarr about to put it in. There's only one real place Sarr's going to put it, and he's going to whip it at the goal.
Yeah.
And he made that move. And yes, if that's me, I'm running away, sliding on my knees like he did. I mean, it must have hurt his knees, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
How he slid. It weren't the greatest of slide, but he's probably calling the dubious goals panel, if that's still a thing, and saying, just get the Nickometer on because that touched my toe on the way in. I'm absolutely delighted for him. You could see what it meant to him. And he's been a match winner for Spurs this season, and he was again
a legend now.
100%.
He secured Tottenham, the first European trophy in 41 years. Sorry, I keep saying this. I have to keep reprocessing this actually happened. This is not some kind of joke that I'm going to wake up and realise this is some kind of practical joke. It hasn't happened. I think also we have to touch upon, I think 48 clearances during the game, 5 saves within it as well for Tottenham. I mean, Vicario, God, I mean, he's such a typical Tottenham goalkeeper in a way where he does give you moments of fright and then he creates that absolute amazing save at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Which of course within that plays in that part we discussed about the Mickey van der Ven acrobatics. But I have to quickly ask you about Romero.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know if you guys agree, he kind of had, I would say, Maguire's card all night to some degree. There was these kind of mind games going on. He was winding him up. Yeah. Even after the game was over, he still went over to him at the end there.
Yeah.
This is a Romero, obviously, character that, as we know, won a Copa America, won the World Cup. Has made it very, very clear, I think, throughout these last few weeks, with all due respect, his future might not be at Tottenham.
Yeah.
If that is his final European game, what a way to bow out if that's the case.
I mean, he certainly didn't. It didn't show that it could be his final game. He was the best player for me, for us, alongside
man of the match as well. We have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I just felt, as you said, when Harry Maguire came forward, which he did in the previous round and was the hero. He came forward. Romero took it on himself and just went, we're going to go toe-to-toe, you and I. I'd be interested to see what he actually said to him at the end, because Harry Maguire doesn't seem that character that would react, and he did react to something that was said. Maybe, I've had your number there, son, or something like that to that extent. But he did, and that was the performance we needed. You spoke about everyone needs to be 7s, 8s, 9s on the night. I don't think they were. I think as a team, the resilience, the doggedness, the togetherness was probably 9 out of 10 as a team. But alongside Van der Ven, they were standout players, and they won us that game. The blocks, the desire to put their bodies on the line.
I must just ask about Sonny, because 10 years this man has been here. And we have to say about Son, this guy's had the opportunity to move on from the football club. Let's be honest about it. Could have gone for more a lucrative financial package elsewhere. Remained at the football club. Seen Harry Kane leave, and he has that status where now he says himself he can now finally call himself a Tottenham legend.
Yeah.
I don't know for you. I felt really emotional seeing Sonny picking up that trophy, holding it aloft, and you could just feel the weight off his shoulders, but the fact that he's now delivered that trophy to the fans. I know the club have got incredible support in Korea, and what that will mean to him as a person, his family, friends. I mean, Harry's even congratulated him as well. He's congratulated the team. Just how big is that for Sonny to finally get the trophy monkey off his back?
Well, he's a legend. He was a legend before the trophy, but and he said he can now call himself a legend. I was so pleased for him, because he's been criticised this season, sometimes wrongly, but I felt it was a brave decision, but the right decision to not start him in this game. We spoke a couple of weeks ago whether he would start, but I think that was the correct decision. But to see him come on and not come on sulking or anything, he came on to really make an impact. The fairy tale is seeing Son pick up that trophy, but the bigger fairy tale would have seen him come on and score, but it wasn't to be. That wasn't the case. But I just feel he's coming to the end of his Spurs career. I think we all know that. Whether he sticks around or not now, but he may not now he's got this trophy. He's been such a servant to this club, at times world-class.
No doubt.
Certain seasons, world-class for Spurs alongside Harry Kane. When Harry Kane's been injured, he was the man to step up. It's not really gone his way this season, of course, and you can tell he feels the brunt of it on his shoulders, because he is the man that's been around for so long. I was delighted for him, and I think he deserves this moment.
Yeah. Well, guys, we saw Abby Summers' reaction in Bilbao. I'm going to have to tell you, 2 of our mob are out there as well. Oh, I know. Crookie and Flex. Now, if you think me and Ange are in a bad mood, wait till you see this immediate aftermath of the game yesterday. Take a look.
We're here in Bilbao at the San Mamés Stadium as Manchester United have lost 1-0 to Spurs in the Europa League Cup Final. Shocking display of football, Crookie. I cannot think what Ruben Amorim was thinking. I don't understand the logic behind his input in this. And as for the players, the less said about them, the better, mate.
I don't know where to start, to be honest. Pathetic, embarrassing, gutless, headless, chaotic. Use any adjective you want. I've rarely felt lower, if ever, watching a Manchester United performance. The team selection was baffling. Didn't get the best out of Bruno Fernandes, and actually he arguably had one of his poorest games of the season because he was being asked to play too deep and got frustrated because he couldn't really influence the game. Mason Mount was anonymous. Rasmus Højlund, I think, had 8 touches in the first half, proved again he's not good enough to be a Manchester United centre forward. Luke Shaw clearly wasn't fit, and I think that lack of match sharpness was a contributing factor to the Tottenham goal, because he didn't get across quickly enough and stop the supply into his man. Obviously it ends up going in the back of the net offshore. We've got Anana fumbling in the goal mouth, getting tangled up in the net, not for the first time, probably not for the last time. And I've just spoken to Ruben Amorim. I've said to him in the press conference, how can you deny that this team has gone backwards? You can turn around and say, I came in mid-season, it's hard to improve the team in those circumstances. Vitor Pereira's done it at Wolverhampton Wanderers. That's just off the top of my head. That's your job. You came in because the previous manager was underperforming. Your job was to take this team forward. You're going to finish 16th or 17th in the Premier League, worst season in 50 years domestically. You've got to a cup final. Your team haven't turned up in the cup final. You've been tactically outmanoeuvred by a manager in Ange Postecoglou who's been publicly pilloried because he's only got one way of playing. Well, he found a different way of playing.
He went to a back five and saw it out.
And ironically, he's come out on top against a manager who is clearly too wedded to his playing style. And that's before you get into the financial implications. This team needs a massive rebuild. Ruben Amorim's been pretty public about that. He's thrown the players under the bus on a regular basis. But how are you going to fund this rebuild now? How are you going to attract players now when you can't offer Champions League football? This is a disastrous night for Manchester United. I know I'm ranting here. And it's not just on Ruben Amorim, but I do think we're going to have to start asking questions of the manager now. But it comes back to Ineos and the chaos in the summer when they held a beauty parade because they didn't have faith in Erik ten Hag. They decided to keep Erik ten Hag, mainly because nobody else wanted the job at that stage, and I'd include Ruben Amorim in that. But the players sensed the manager was weak, so they basically got him fired with their performances. Dan Ashworth comes to the football club, the self-proclaimed best in class, according to Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He doesn't agree with the decision to appoint Ruben Amorim, so he loses his job. Ineos have overseen a disaster of a season. We're the laughing stock of the Premier League.
Laughing stock of the world.
And we've lost to Tottenham in a cup final. Tottenham don't win cups.
17 years, their first trophy in 17 years. And for me, I agree with everything you said there, Crookie, and it's the manner of that performance. Total waste of time. Before the goal happened, Man United were comfortable. Wasn't great. Poor spectacle football, but we were comfortable. Nothing happening. One little bit of chaos, one little bit of lack of concentration. Where was the urgency out the starting blocks at the half time? What did Ruben Amorim say to those players? Because they just let minute by minute tick off. And Ruben Amorim looked at it and went, it's the 71st minute it took to get a substitution. You could see it wasn't working with Mason Mount. You could see Bruno was too deep. You could see he needed to get Garnacho on that pitch. You could see, yes, I know Joshua Zirkzee, how long is he going to have left in him? Force him. You forced him to get on the plane and give you something. Bring him on at half-time. We saw what Rasmus Højlund did at Chelsea. How did we think he was going to do against Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven?
We've seen what Rasmus Højlund's been doing all season. This is not a one-off performance, and I feel sorry for the bloke because he really wants it. He knows what it means to be a Manchester United player. He's not good enough. And again, that comes down to shoddy recruitment. It comes down to bad ownership. The Glazers were on the pitch before the game. I noticed they weren't shown on the big screen. I'd imagine that was by design because they would have known the reaction that they would have got. Sir Jim Ratcliffe was there. Sir Jim Ratcliffe is overseeing this once great football club crumbling. And I really don't see how they pick themselves up from here. No European football next season. A team who were just used to winning matches. And by the way, I thought the team selection was telling. Garnacho's gone on social media before the game. Yeah. On Instagram, he's posted pictures of himself scoring in big cup finals. He's furious, and rightly so, that he continually gets overlooked for a striker who never scores. That's because they're going to sell him. Kobbie Mainoo doesn't get on the pitch until stoppage time. That's because Ineos would sell him. These are two players who come through the academy that these owners are going to profit on.
Especially now.
And use PSR as an excuse. I really fear for the future.
Can Ruben Amorim survive this, Crookie? Listen, we are emotional now. Right, and when it's like this, you don't want to say things that you regret the next day or regret the next week, etc., etc. And I've really tried to refrain from being in that mindset, but it's really difficult. We're hearing it, we're in the mix of it. This has just happened. Can he survive this? He's talking about if they feel they want a different guy. I won't even talk about compensation. I
believe that when I see it.
Exactly, but I'm not quitting. Made that clear.
Yeah. And listen, respect to him for that, because actually the easy option would have been to stay at Sporting.
Absolutely.
If he knew what a disaster zone he was walking into, and I wonder, did he do proper due diligence, because it does seem to have taken even him by surprise. He obviously feels like his methods will work. In response to the question I asked him about have you taken the club backwards, he pointed out certain games. Forest was one, Wolverhampton Wanderers at home was another, where actually we created chances and we should have got more out of it. But that's not enough to show for it. If you're supposed to be this European super coach, it's the lack of a plan B tonight. Postecoglou, we've battered him for 2 years because it's what we do, mate. But actually, when it came to the crunch, it wasn't what we do, because we've seen from Spurs in the knockout stages of this competition, they've been much more pragmatic. They were away from home against Frankfurt, they were away from home against Bodo Glimt, and they were tonight. 27% possession. United have 15 shots.
By design as well.
Tottenham have 3.
They sat back, and that's the thing, the lack of respect for United, and rightly so, to say, let them have it.
Yeah.
This is a Spurs side that can't defend. This is a Spurs side that has a high line and a high press at all moments of the game. And when we see Ange, like I said, literally tactically pulling Ruben Amorim's pants down. Let's be honest, he's beaten him 3 times already. 3 times, Carabao Cup, Premier League, and now this, in different ways. And Ange went, you know what? We got to about 70th minute. I'll take Johnson off, put Danso right back. We'll go to back 5. We'll beat him at their own system.
And that just adds to the humiliation.
Exactly.
So can he survive? It's a massive summer. You know, Mateus Cunha's going to join. We're pretty certain on that. Liam Delap's a problem now, because I was told he wanted to play Champions League football. Not going to get that at Old Trafford. Emi Martinez, they're trying to attract again. I think he will want to go and play Champions League football. I've already spoken about the fact I think they're going to try and sell the 2 academy players, which will be, you know, against everything this football club stands for. He's got to have a good summer, where he's got a full pre-season now to work on the training pitch, to get his methods across, to get his own players in. They've got to hit the ground running. If we're 10 games into next season and he's lost 6 of them, he should be in trouble.
And that's the thing now. There's going to be people even putting Ruben's head on a spike in pre-season games. You know, that's how bad it's got. We are, for me, I don't mean this sensationally. Honestly, Crookie, as a United fan, I'm looking at, we are in the pits of hell.
Yeah, we are.
Like, we are in the pits of hell with nowhere to turn, nowhere to hide, and no real direction of how to get out of it. And you're so right about Ineos. I'm looking at them at that board level, and I'm like, they don't have a clue. And this is about to get worse. If it can, it will. This is about to get worse. This has been Inside Devils, guys.
Can I just pick up one?
Yeah,
absolutely. The one player I think deserves credit from tonight, Lenny Yoro, I thought was exceptional. You know, didn't know if he was fully fit. He's been chucked into the deep end in the European final. He's one signing they have got right. I thought he was comfortably United's man of the match. Maybe Ahmad in the first half, but he emptied out pretty quickly. I thought Lenny Yoro deserves a lot of respect on his name tonight.
Yeah, and it's really difficult to find any form of glimmer of light, but I definitely agree with that.
Well, to say that you feel their pain is an understatement. Obviously, the main topic, I suppose, in that aftermath, there was many, I'm sure, but is the rebuild. Mm-hmm. They think there's a rebuild is needed. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. We hear this word rebuild quite a lot. We were talking off camera, and you guys have heard it quite a lot as well. I don't think rebuild covers it. No. Because what are you building on? Rebuild implies there's a foundation. There is no foundation at Manchester United right now. It's a factory reset. That's really what Manchester United need. It's a reboot. Where are you on where do we start?
You know what? Andy Mitten said that the Man United squad was Frankenstein's monster of a squad. And I think he really actually summed it up really well with that. It's just so difficult. I mean, of course you need a rebuild. We've been talking about this for a long time, and talking to fans in Manchester, it all goes back to the Glazers. It all goes back to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who I don't think has decorated himself in any glory this season. I think it's been shambolic. You worry about how much Amorim is going to be backed in Europe. There are reports that he will have £100 million to play, just under £100 million to play with. And I think that's before you think about players that are going to be sold. But you worry how much he is going to be backed. You worry about how patient they're going to be. You worry about a lot of different things. But of course, a rebuild is massive. You've got to think about the players that are going out. You've got people like Victor Lindelof. You've got Christian Eriksen heading out. One fan was suggesting to me that Rasmus Højlund should go out on loan somewhere and to maybe keep hold of him. I mean, I haven't seen enough personally, but at the same time, maybe we could do a bit of an Anthony situation where he goes on loan somewhere and manage. Yeah, I'm all about raising the stock of these terrible players. You know, the future of somebody like Marcus Rashford. Hopefully, Anthony has done enough to get himself out of the door. But of course, it's a massive rebuild. But the thing is, what are they going to do with Ruben Amorim if they're going to stick with him and actually stick with him, no matter how bad it gets next season? Then I'm all for it. But if we're going to continue on this merry-go-round, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. You talk about that rebuild, and the first protocol has to be the manager, as you've touched on there. Do you back him? Right. Well, I'll
You tell me what you're thinking.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and then I'll get what you're thinking.
Can I just say, it's so nice we're not involved in a rebuild
Enjoy
or
the
discussion.
discussion.
I can't believe it, Dale.
I feel for it.
What's going on here?
Can you feel it on this side of the
This is
table?
superb. I can get used to this. It's
Do you know
unbelievable.
what? And I'll get your thoughts as well. But with Amorim, right, I find myself in this position where, right now, as of right now, the day after the Europa League final, Amorim is not it. I'm sorry, but he is not it. But I have to pretend that he might be. That's where I am. I have to pretend he might be. I have to.
Going with delusion.
It feels, yeah, a little bit. It feels biblical to a degree. You got to have faith. You know, I'm George Michael over here. I have to have faith in him, and that's that's all I've got right now. Because if you build a pro and a con list about Amorim, the only pros are going to be he was good at sporting, he needs time.
Won 6 whole games.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Really, the cold hard truth is he's got, 9 points in the league since he's come in? How many defeats? I don't even know. I've had to cast that aside right now. We're 16th. We're probably going to end up 17th. 1 place above the relegation zone when it's all said and done after the weekend. So, look, I like him. Sometimes he's refreshingly honest. However, it just feels like a gym membership. It feels like I'm gonna keep paying this monthly direct debit, but I'm not gonna get the results because I'm not gonna go. You know, I don't know where I am right now with Amorim. I don't know where I am. I've lost my head again.
You have. It's all right.
Where are you?
It's okay.
Where are you?
Listen, I've got to say I do back Amorim, but I will say I understand where people are coming from. I think that game was a massive test of the faith of fans. Man United fans in general are pretty loyal, and a lot of people were saying that within the stadium, the first half, it was extremely loud with the Amorim chants, and it got less and less and less. A lot of fans saying that they felt like they should have been acknowledged a little bit more by the players and the manager. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I don't know, but I do back him just because where do you go from here? I understand that he's won 6 Premier League games. Half of those victories came against teams who were relegated. I understand that there have been a lot of issues with him sticking to this system, being rigid, etc. But for me, the fact that he is honest, he isn't, Eric Ten Hag talking about fairy tales and lies and all this rubbish. This guy is honest and he does call it how he sees it. And he said in his programme notes, I think it was the Everton game maybe, he said, this is going to be a storm. And if I revert and go back from this, then we're just going to go back to square one again.
Yeah.
So what do? You get rid of him, you get Thomas Frank, Iraola, then what if they do badly too? What we're going to do? Sack them? If we've already brought in these players that fit with Amorim's style of play, how are they going to fit into other styles of play of other managers? I will say for me, it seems like the players like him.
Yeah.
Luke Shaw, Diogo Dalot, Bruno Fernandes have all come out and said, this is the man for Manchester United.
Yeah.
You weren't getting that after the FA Cup final with Ten Hag.
No.
And I think when you look at what he's had to deal with, the beginning of the season, there were a lot of team leaks going on. There's a lot of suspicions as to who was behind that on social media, but whoever it was, that has stopped. He's dealt with the Rashford situation very well, I think. Even Garnacho, dropping him for that derby, he's handled it well. Casemiro, he's been honest. Casemiro saying this is the best season of my life because I had a manager that didn't believe in me and I had to go away and prove myself. I think when you look at all the different managers that we've had, you had Mourinho against Luke Shaw, against Paul Pogba, Louis van Gaal, there was like a mutiny expected. All the players were so unhappy. Ollie was Ollie, Eric Ten Hag against Sancho.
Yeah.
He's dealt with things in-house quite well. And being the face of Manchester United at the minute as the manager when there are these redundancies, which he is acknowledging and saying, this is uncomfortable for me, that people are losing their jobs, the fact that he's able to say that. And I understand people can argue and say, oh, well, that's all kind of PR stuff that you're talking about. I understand that on the pitch it's not good enough. But I just think to be without sounding like I've got a bit of a big head here as a Man United fan, being a Manchester United manager is a completely different kettle of fish compared to other managerial jobs. And those aspects you have to get right.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that he gets those bits right, that he understands the assignment, on top of the fact that I think he does deserve a pre-season. I think he does deserve the next season. Whether he will get that, I don't know, but there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. We'll come on to your, MVP, Alejandro Garnacho, but you look at someone like Kobbie Mainoo, not really been great since he's come back from injury. Where does he play with Amorim? Is he one of those players that could be sold? Do they have another season working together?
Yeah.
Have we 100% got rid of Jadon Sancho? I'm hoping we have. Marcus Rashford expects somehow that he's going to Barcelona. Ain't happening, but hopefully someone will take him. There's a lot of different things that he's got to think about. You know, you can't get rid of 20 players. A lot of these players that played in Bilbao, that were in this squad, he's going to have to work with next season.
Yeah.
And it'll be very interesting. But for me, I think we've gone down this Amorim road now. We have to keep going.
For the record, I agree. You know, I think back him. I just hate that I'm going into another summer thinking
understand.
I'm not sure if this manager's good enough.
Yeah.
I'm here
I
again.
understand.
How do you guys look from the outside looking in?
What I was saying, look, I haven't followed Ruben Amorim probably as much as you guys have, and I could be wrong in certain aspects, but when he first arrived at Sporting, I think they were in a real bad place in terms of position, in terms of form, in terms of I'm right in saying supporters jumping over the training ground and attacking players. And what he done there is he turned that football club around. Of course, it's a lot bigger challenge than where he is now. I mean, he took players ahead of where they should be. Gyökeres in, for instance, he's took him and he's made him one of the sought-after players in Europe, potentially could be at Manchester United next season. Who knows? So for me, I from the outsider looking in, you have to back this guy.
Yeah.
He's got a track record of being able to turn clubs around. Yes, it's a lot bigger challenge here than it is in terms of globally, in terms of the world is looking at you. But when he first arrived, I was concerned as a Spurs supporter, someone who we thought was going to be higher up the table, competing higher up the table, that this guy is going to turn Manchester United back and bring success back to the football club. And I still think he's that man. He's got a lot of aspects and issues to deal with behind the scenes, which he is doing remarkably well, in my opinion. Yes, it didn't go well in the final, and it hasn't gone well in this campaign, but similar to Ange in terms of he needs backing. And I don't know what you think about, there was a real furore and there was a real excitement when Sir Jim Ratcliffe was going to take over or buy into the club. And I don't think he's done anything right in terms of decisions apart from getting Ruben Amorim. And for me, as a former player and someone looking from the outside, I would back him.
I hope you're right.
What's interesting again is to go back to the game a little bit, is that I think as a Spurs fan, there has been that kind of maybe inferiority complex when you play Man United, because you look at Man United and it's the club that is built on heritage of winning, that has got over the line, that has always, even in recent finals, found a way to win games. And I think what was really, damning when you look at United is that, especially that game, I looked at the United, Spurs playing them last night, I thought, this isn't Man United. It's kind of, 11 red shirts, if you want to call it that,
by name only.
But there's nothing that kind of...
No fear factor.
There was nothing that kind of showed me this is Manchester United. It could have been anyone we were playing.
I think Luke Shaw touched on that, where he said, I feel like we go into a lot of games where we don't believe that we can win.
Yeah.
He was saying that after the game. So I think it shines a light on the mentality and the confidence of these players is also quite low, because it is, when people came to Old Trafford, there was a feeling of, this is Old Trafford.
Yeah.
This is a fortress, and it's not.
Goals have been a massive problem. I think, again, I think as Spurs fans, we were concerned about going 1-0 down.
Yeah.
But perversely, I suppose, as United fans, you were also perversely about going 1-0 down because of the nature of the lack of goals in the team.
We say it, I think, every week on our show. The bottom line is, who can score goals for Manchester United? And yes, in Europe, you can argue Bruno Fernandes, Mason Mount, Harry Maguire, Casemiro. But when it's week in, week out in the Premier League, who can score goals?
Yeah, exactly.
And it is... Bruno Fernandes, and fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Because Rasmus Højlund isn't good enough.
I don't mean in a bad way. Like I say, as a Spurs fan, I'm so happy and proud and pleased that we've got over the line. But I just wonder for Man United players psychologically to lose to Tottenham in a final, a club that isn't used to winning, how much that plays concerns in their minds.
Yeah.
What I'll say is...
That is a good point. One thing I would just quickly say is that I guess when you look at, and our fans were talking about this, that when you look at, the Barcelona games, the 09, the 11, and this is no disrespect to Spurs, but I think you walk away from those games feeling like, you know what, they are far better than us at this point. And I think because of the way that we are in the Premier League with Spurs, I think that, and the stats and everything, they were maybe there for the taking a little bit more. I think you do walk away from it not having, as a fan, not having that kind of humbling feeling maybe of, you know what, it was a team that is technically a lot better than us. Were quite closely matched in the league, so I think it plays a role.
This is purely based, if you agree, Dale, just on the fact we wanted it more. there was just that feeling going into the week itself about how much we needed it, we wanted the trophy and what it would do for our season, where, again, it goes back to the point we said earlier with Amorim, the way in which the whole week was coming about. Just intriguing, the two ways the camps dealt with the week itself.
Yeah, there was a lot of, like we said, they were chilled. I think that's the word I use, they were chilled.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been successful for Manchester United. There's a real stigma around Manchester United at the moment that nothing they are doing is good enough.
Well, Bale called it United-y.
But you know what?
Amazing.
On that note, just before we wrap up, because he's come up quickly, just to touch Garnacho.
Get him out.
You can't mean that.
Get him out.
You can't mean
Get
that.
him and his sad little brother out.
The brother maybe. Why is that wound people up so much?
Listen, football is like mafia. You don't go against the family. You do not go against Manchester United.
It's not going against United, though, is he?
Listen, right? All these players that have spoken after the game have spoken about, we're sorry to the fans, we've let you down, this hasn't been good enough, etc., etc. What has Garnacho said? He said that the season was rubbish, I'll say.
True.
You know, we didn't beat anyone in the league, we lacked a lot of things, when you don't score goals, you always need more. And then it's I.
Good.
All about him. There's no message to the fans. There is no acceptance that he hasn't been good enough because he hasn't been good enough. And for me, to come out, where is his accountability? For him to come out and say something so negative like that when every other player has been a little bit more humble about it, that annoys me. You're telling me that he doesn't know what his brother, who is his agent, is doing.
Maybe.
You're telling me that, listen, if that was me, you'd be saying to your family, what are you playing at?
Maybe.
Rein it in. At the end of the day, nobody, and I have said this, and I said it about Ronaldo when all that stuff was going on the other season, nobody is bigger than this club. No player is bigger than this club, and you cannot allow your agent, your family member, to be putting things like that on social media. All it does is just build even more drama, more media attention. Amorim, he ain't for Amorim. He's not bothered because he's saying, I'll take the summer. Pure profit, probably not going to be 60 to 70 million. I know you love him, but that for me, he's burnt his bridges with me.
No, I can't disagree more about this. We every week we're asking for passion, for fight. If Roy Keane comes out and does that, and says that interview and says we've been rubbish.
He's not playing for United at the minute.
But if I'm saying when he was playing,
right?
If someone like him comes out and says that, we go, there it is. There's the fight. We're asking for bark.
But then it's because he goes on to then talk about himself. I only played that 20 minutes. Well, you know what? Tough. That's what happens sometimes. You don't always get your own way.
But we lost. Like I think what I want to see from a young man like him. But who's been brilliant for Manchester United as a whole. Scored in the FA Cup final, don't forget, last season as well. I want to see bark, I want to see bite. And that's what we've asked for. We've asked for passion every single week. The second a player shows it in a post-match, right, he's only got 20 minutes. He deserves to be fuming. We want to put a muzzle on him. I just
But look at when Ahmad was fuming, when Anthony got put on the pitch in Istanbul against Fenerbahce. You could see Ahmad was fuming in his face. Has he ever come out and started saying that type of madness?
Two different personalities.
He proved it on the pitch.
Yeah, two different personalities. If he didn't prove it last time.
Well, I don't like his personality.
I'll just jump in quickly there. Because I think it's a real individualised passion towards himself, what he could have done. And to a certain extent, I like that. I think he's made an error of judgment in timing as well, in how to bring this out. Look at the way Ollie Watkins handled not playing against PSG. I think that was handled the right way. He waited for an interview, a reporter to ask him a question. Then he said that I'm disappointed. I understand players play and I didn't. I'm disappointed. I could have made a difference. I think it was just an error of judgment on his side. Maybe his youthfulness and his agent, his brother, who's really young.
Yeah.
I think that he'll have a lot of making up to do in the changing room to other players. I just think that's a message to say that he is available, and I don't think he wants to be at Manchester United.
Potentially. Well, what I've got to say, guys, is thankfully, that's all we've got time for. So
no, can't we carry on?
Listen, thank you to Ricky, thank you to Darren, and to Ange as well. Look, that was a slog for us, wasn't it? But until next time, we'll see you soon.